So today I'm gathering with the Stephen ministers who were commissioned back in 2018, Granville Lee and Tom Jackson and Elaine Shaw. And I have been privileged to work with you all over the last 2.5 years of being part of Stephen ministry that was restarted at First United Methodist. I often run into people in situations where I think they would benefit from speaking with a Stephen minister. But for a lot of people, they don't know what to expect, and I'm not quite sure how to explain why I think it would be helpful to them. So I thought it would be nice to have a conversation with you all to explore that a little bit. And I think of our conversations as holy conversations, not because we talk about God or about theology, but because we trust that God's present and at work, and because we're seeking healing and understanding. So I hope that in our conversation we can help people understand that concept of holy conversation a little better. I'm going to start by asking Elaine, how do you prepare to have a conversation as a Stephen minister?
Well, first, I just want to say thanks for having us and for giving us a chance to talk about this, because that's a lot of fun. And it's great to be with you guys, actually, socially distanced and all. But I, too, think about our conversations as Stephen ministers as holy conversations. And what I do to prepare is I start by just breathing and becoming present. And I bring to my mind and to my heart my care receiver. And I think about the last time we were together. And I recall different things that we've talked about together. For me, as I pray about our upcoming visit, I think about letting go of what is my normal tendency to try to do a good job or fix things or take the lead. And I just try to remember to let the Holy Spirit flow through me, because that ultimately is what will strengthen both of us.
So it sounds like it's not a problem-solving session,
Right.
so much as a being together.
Coming together, coming alongside my care receiver is what I hope to do.
Thank you. Thanks. So Tom, I want to ask you, of course we respect the confidentiality of your relationship as a caregiver, but could you share with us a little bit of what a typical conversation might be like, or how do you end that conversation? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So my background was as a salesperson. So as a salesperson, you're doing a lot of talking. You're really bringing out the features and benefits so that the buyer has the opportunity to purchase. So as a Stephen minister, we've learned how to be such good listeners. So it's been delightful to have a care receiver that is, just so easy to listen to. And honestly, when I'm listening, of course I'm at the other end of a phone these days instead of in person like we met the first couple times. But I end up just smiling. And the reason I end up smiling is because, he's so freely willing to share. My care receiver is so freely willing to share. And I think, what wonderful things he's sharing, so that when I do come to close, I may have written down a couple notes. When we do come to close, I can look back and say to him, gosh, look at all of God's graces, or look at all of the wonderful things that have happened to you over our session. It might be historical, because he might have gone back to high school days during our conversation, but we really generally just review. I generally review some of the things that I was hearing in our conversation, and again, it just makes me smile. So I bring those to his attention, and then I usually will just end in some kind of a It's not usually necessarily a prayer, but some kind of closing of some sort. And then we'll usually just simply confirm that next Friday at 2:30 will work for him, and that's worked out well for us every week. So and I do tell him pretty often, because it does work out this way, all the gifts that he's given me, because I rarely during our time get a chance to talk, which is fine, but I do let him know that he's graced me as well.
One of the privileges of being a Stephen minister, I think, is being able to see the world through another person's eyes.
Boy, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Granville, can you tell me what's something you've learned or gained by being a Stephen minister? How have you benefited? What have you learned?
Yes, part of the Stephen ministry training that's very important is the listening. I would say that was also a part of something I learned through my management background and training in different things, and we called it active listening. And it was not listening, it was listening for the person in management terms, and not listening so that I could be preparing mentally a response. So if you're talking, I'm off saying, okay, now how am I going to respond? So the importance, and it's emphasized in the Stephen ministry training, to just be in the presence of that person. And through Stephen ministry, you're then being in the presence of God, and it's a spiritual type session. Prior to Stephen ministry, it was something I saw in the bulletin. Say, well, I'll sign up for that because I want to be a more caring person. A situation where I needed to. But I was looking at it individually for me, how can I be a good caregiver? And through the training, I started realizing it wasn't about me only being a caregiver. It was about how do I care for others that come in my presence. I'm a member of a Saturday group. I was a member before Stephen Ministry called Men of Faith that meets every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. And it's about 10, 15 members, men who were meeting down at the sanctuary, at the church, not in the sanctuary. And to me, it's a group Stephen ministry session. And I learned through the Stephen ministry training just to listen to each of the person, each of the men that are in the group. The group varies from a young man whose wife just had a baby to elder statesman person in the group, and a number of combinations in between. I'm retired, other people are working. So it's interesting. But for me, the group has come from the Stephen minister point of view to how do I listen? What's going on in their life that I'm hearing? And I know a number of the people outside of that group, so I know what's going on in their lives, and I know. And the confidentiality is also very, very important in that group, as it is in Stephen ministry. So what it has meant to me is to just further my spirituality with God and to be present.
And I hear you saying it's not just when you're meeting one-on-one intentionally as a Stephen minister, but the listening affects other interactions that you have in a group or maybe in your home.
Absolutely.
With your friends.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, based on what we've said, we might call it holy listening instead of holy conversations. A holy sharing.
So.
For sure.
Yeah, holy sharing is a good one. Yep.
And so I'm glad to know you're out in the world listening. Glad to be a part of you. Thanks for joining me today and sharing.